Hi, this is James from TriathlonCoaching.uk. Just wanted to do a short video on achieving weight loss, which is the target of many triathletes, particularly in trying to get to a target race weight. Now, in terms of achieving weight loss, I think most people understand the energy balance equation, which is if you're taking the same number of calories in a day as to what you expend, then your body weight stays the same. If you're taking more calories than you expend, then that's a positive energy balance, so you gain weight. And if you expend more calories than you take in, then that's a negative energy balance and you achieve weight loss. Now, the thing is, when someone's trying to achieve weight loss, whether it's a triathlete or just generally someone who's wanting to lose weight, what often happens is they'll sort of restrict the calorie intake and often quite significantly. The problem is with doing this, certainly from the point of view of a triathlete who is swim, bike, run, doing some strength and conditioning training, that reduction in the energy intake can also lead to underperformance in training, lack of fueling for training, poor recovery between training sessions, and generally just not getting the most out of your training. Now, in terms of a safe level of weight loss, what we're looking at is around about half a kilogram per week, or about a pound per week. So there's 3,500 calories approximately in half a kilo of body fat. So if you're to be losing more than that per week, the chances are it's not coming from body fat. And where you lose it from, it tends to be from your body's lean mass. And that will have an effect of slowing your metabolic rate further, and in the long term you may likely put that weight back on and actually a little bit more with it. So if you do track your weight, and there's some benefit to doing that, and you can do it on the Exhale app, it's worth doing no more than once per week, but keep an eye on it and just make sure that the weight isn't coming off too quickly. Now, in terms of counting calories, it's not something which we generally recommend that you do. Now, the reason for that is there are formulas, there are apps that will predict your energy requirements in terms of calories, but they do just that, they only predict it. And as a triathlete, your training schedule obviously fluctuates in terms of training load from one day to another. So it'd be very difficult to actually accurately assess your calorie needs. Plus, it's not just during the training that the body burns calories. Your metabolic rate tends to remain elevated for some time after training, particularly those with more of an intensity component to it. So they only provide a very rough sort of estimate of what your calorie intake and your calorie needs actually are. I think there is some benefit from time to time in terms of tracking your calorie intake, your food intake, keeping a food diary. Again, there's various apps that will do that for you. And then make the process fairly easy to do. But I would use that really to kind of, evaluate your eating habits and your drinking habits. It's useful to identify things like, certain foods that you routinely consume that are very high on calories, things that are in your diet that perhaps have a lot of sugar that you may be unaware of. And it helps to identify those areas that you can potentially make some improvements within. But in terms of trying to hit a specific calorie target, I'd avoid that. I think the main things to consider with your dietary habits is firstly, make sure that your breakfast is always a large meal and it's carbohydrate based, taking the calories at the time of the day when you actually need them the most. Yeah, so what we want to try to avoid doing is taking the bulk of the calories at the end of the day, at the time when your body doesn't really need them. So breakfast is the most important meal of the day. If you are training first thing in the morning, then try to avoid training fasted, but obviously you might want to have something a little bit lighter, such as a cereal bar, a banana, a small slice of toast maybe, or half a slice of toast, and then have your breakfast after training. Try to make sure you eat regularly throughout the day, so avoid those large gaps between eating. That'll help to keep your energy levels consistent throughout the day. Every time you eat, your metabolic rate increases. It's called diet-induced thermogenesis, so it keeps your metabolic rate high throughout the day. if you leave large gaps between meals, your metabolism slows right down, your energy levels drop. So eating small amounts regularly throughout the day is really useful. If you can have 5 small meals throughout the day rather than 3 large ones, that's quite a useful approach. Just avoid having 5 large ones throughout the day. That would be counterproductive if you're looking for weight loss. Other things to think about: fueling after training or refueling after every training. This is the time when the body needs calories. Again, if you don't fuel well after a training session, you'll find later in the day, that calorie deficit will make you very hungry. You're therefore more likely to overconsume and snack later in the evening, which is something that we want to avoid. We don't want to be taking all of the calories at that time when the body doesn't need them and the metabolic rate is slowed right down. Take them after training, when the metabolism is high and the body needs these calories to rebuild and to adapt. Keeping hydrated will help. Reducing your body fluid level will actually have an effect of slowing your metabolism slightly, reducing your energy levels. So keep hydrated. Minimize things like your alcohol and your caffeine intake. These are empty calories. That doesn't mean they don't contain any. They contain a lot, but there's very little nutritive value with them. So they provide a lot of energy without providing a great deal of anything else. So hopefully some of that would be fairly useful to you. If you have any other questions in relation to nutrition and fueling before, during, after training, please get in touch with your coach.